You ever see someone smart, successful, totally put together, and wonder how they could possibly fall under the spell of a charismatic predator? Well, here's the thing. It isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's a science, and it follows a very, very specific playbook. Let's break down exactly how it works.
You see, the real difference between someone who gets away and someone who gets trapped, it's not about how smart you are. It's not about how strong you are. It's about whether or not you can recognize the pattern. It's about knowing the plays before you find yourself becoming a character in their story.
All right, so phase 1 begins the second a predator like this walks into a room. And you gotta understand, they aren't looking for weakness in the way you might think. They are hunting for very specific psychological needs. It's all about targeted identification.
Now here's the part that might surprise you. The number one quality a predator often looks for? High intelligence. Yeah, they actively seek out smart people. And why would they do that? Because a smart person's ego can be their biggest blind spot. You think, I'm too smart to be manipulated, and that very thought is the crack in the door the predator needs. They're also scanning for ambition, for isolation, and for a history of trauma. Not as weaknesses, but as deep, unmet needs they know exactly how to fill.
And believe me, this isn't just a theory. Take a look at Raniere, the guy behind the NXIVM cult. He had a whole system. He would identify his targets, usually these incredibly successful, educated women, and then he'd research them for months. He would learn their dreams, their deepest insecurities, their old wounds, all before he ever even said hello.
And when he finally did approach them, this is what he'd say. Just imagine hearing that for a second. If you've spent your whole life feeling a little too intense or just deeply misunderstood, a phrase like this is, well, it's intoxicating. It's a perfectly crafted key designed to unlock your trust. He makes you feel seen. And just like that, the trap starts to close.
So there it is. That's the roadmap of the descent we're about to walk through. The hunt is complete. And now, the predator moves on to the next, absolutely crucial phase, the seduction.
Phase 2 is just a full-on charm offensive. It usually lasts about 30 days, and it is intense. But this isn't just about a few compliments here and there. No, this is a calculated psychological assault designed to hijack your brain's chemistry.
The technique is called love bombing. We're talking constant messages, unwavering attention, this overwhelming feeling that you finally met the one person on earth who truly gets you. This relentless validation triggers a massive dopamine release in your brain. It lights up the exact same neural pathways as addiction. Seriously, by week 2, your brain is literally being rewired. And then, once you're hooked, they introduce this little twist: intermittent reinforcement. All of a sudden, they pull away. You panic. Then they come back. And the relief you feel is so intense, it's euphoric. It's the exact same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. And here's the most important part. You're not addicted to the person. You become addicted to the hope of their love. Jim Jones was an absolute master of this. He would bring newcomers into his inner circle and create this overwhelming feeling of psychological intimacy. He'd share his secrets with them, making each person feel like they were his most trusted confidant. It wasn't just a community he was building. It was a powerful, totally manufactured sense of belonging. And that quote from an early member just captures the result perfectly. That feeling, it's not foolishness, it's neurobiology. It's the sensation of a perfectly sprung psychological trap. By the time a person even begins to realize something is wrong, their entire sense of self is fused with the group. So once the target is completely hooked, emotionally dependent, the predator kicks off phase 3. But this isn't about physical locks on doors, oh no. It's way more subtle. It's an insidious psychological isolation, where the victim willingly cuts themselves off from the outside world. They use this very specific language to just reframe your reality. Suddenly, your family becomes a threat. Your old friends, they're a negative influence. The entire outside world is just lost and dangerous. And because the predator is now your primary source of validation and good feelings, you don't just accept this, you start to agree with it. You become a true believer, actively defending your own prison.
And there's a clear neuroscientific reason for why this works so well. Our brains are literally wired to reality test our ideas by bouncing them off different people. Isolation takes away that vital mechanism. When you are only surrounded by people who all believe the same thing, your brain's survival instinct kicks in. It basically says, hey, if everyone here believes this, it must be true. It's a survival mechanism gone completely haywire.
NXIVM provides just a chilling example of this. the secret inner circle DOS, was pitched to these women as this exclusive, elite female empowerment group. But in reality, it was designed from the ground up for total isolation and absolute control.
They were systematically separated from their families, their friends, everything, and then extreme tactics came into play, like taking nude photos as collateral to make sure they could never, ever leave or speak out. But the real psychological horror is that even after all of this, many of these women still defended Keith Raniere. They believed in him more than they believed their own families.
And that brings us to the final and frankly the most terrifying phase. The predator has control. They have isolation, and now they have to make it permanent. And they do this by introducing a loyalty test, a way to make the victim complicit in their own entrapment.
Predators weaponize this basic psychological principle. They'll push a victim to do something that violates their own moral code. Cut off a parent, lie for the group, give up all their money. Your brain cannot hold two opposing ideas at once. I am a good person, and I just did a terrible thing. It creates a conflict, so to resolve it, the brain reframes reality. Your values actually change. That bad thing you did, it becomes necessary, justified. Complicity is the perfect cage because you build it yourself.
And the ultimate horrifying conclusion of this playbook can be seen in one word: Jonestown. Jim Jones had moved 900 of his followers to a remote compound in the jungles of Guyana. They were completely and totally isolated. But the psychological control was so complete that most of them didn't even want to leave. The final escalation was terrifyingly fast. After years and years of this conditioning, when Jones told them the end was here, his followers trusted him more than their own will to live. They had been so psychologically broken down that death seemed like the only logical escape. This wasn't some random act of violence. It was the predictable endpoint of perfect psychological control.
This quote from a NXIVM survivor is just absolutely haunting. She admits that if it hadn't been for outside intervention, for federal investigators forcing the issue, she never would have left. She would still be there, believing, defending her abuser. That right there is the power of this playbook. The trap is so complete, the victims literally cannot see the bars.
And here's why this matters to every single one of us. This psychological architecture isn't just for cult leaders. You can see echoes of these same phases in an isolating boss, a controlling partner, an online influencer who creates an exclusive community, or even a political movement that demonizes anyone on the outside. The mechanics are exactly the same.
So, I'll just leave you with this question. After seeing how this whole playbook works, the next time you meet someone who tells you how special you are, that only they truly understand you, are you going to see the charm, or are you going to see the cage being built around you?
Because in the end, that's really the darkest truth of all. The most effective control isn't built on force. It's built on desire. They don't have to drag you into the cage. They convince you to walk in all by yourself and lock the door behind you.